Hello everyone, it's Alex from Bad Decks Play Badly, and this is this week's new deck. I do apologise, this deck is a little bit late compared to usual. The reason for that is you may have, if you were watching the previous video, you may have knew it was my birthday coming up, and I had a very great time, if anyone wants to know. The problem is, on my birthday, I happened to get a bit too drunk and end up breaking my leg. So, which, yeah, it's not great. So I actually spent my actual birthday in at the hospital. I still haven't actually got my leg fixed yet. It's just in a temporary cast, but it did mean I was in great pain, and I had a really hard time going up and down the stairs in my house. And because my computer is upstairs and my bathroom is downstairs, you can kind of see where the issue was lying, where I don't really want to be upstairs too often. So I've been pretty couch-ridden downstairs. My leg is feeling a lot better. It's still in a cast, but I can now hop up and down the stairs without being in complete agony. So I thought, whilst it's all good until I get some surgery in the next coming days, and I might as well do a bit of uploading and make a new deck for you guys. So this is my new deck. I've called it Smothering Esperzoa. It's a Dimir deck, and it's built around the card Ethereum, not Scream Sculptor, but Esperzoa. This is actually kind of known in the Magic community as a pretty just bad card, which is kind of why I wanted to build around it. Because I think I can make it work in a pretty okay deck. So the whole point of this is a free drop, it's a 4/3 flyer, artifact creature jellyfish. I was actually really tempted to make jellyfish tribal, but yeah, there's not many very good jellyfishes in Magic. And if this is one of the better ones, it just shows how bad the tribe really is. So at the beginning of your upkeep, return an artifact you control to its owner's hand. So that in itself, it's definitely a build around it. If you just played an Esperzoa and as it is, you'd have to return itself back to its owner's hand, and it would be just a terrible card. But I'm trying to kind of make it work. The reason this deck's called Smothering Esperzoa is I thought, if I'm doing Dimir and I've already got one big creature with flying which hinders me, why not put another creature that hinders me as well? So I've got 4 copies of Smothering Abomination. It's going to be my sort of card draw engine. And it's devoid, flying, 4/3. But at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you draw a card. So in this deck, not only have I given myself the challenge of having to have a lot of artifacts that I need to play, I also have to have a lot of creatures to play. So I think I've come up with a pretty good answer, and I'd love to know what you guys think. I've not actually played this deck. I've only had a go at the solitaire mode on Magic Online, and it seemed to work, so I'll see how it goes. Right, I'll start with the 1-drops, just to make it easy, because obviously I need to use a lot of artifacts. So my 1-drops, this is going to be my removal package. I've only got 3 copies because room was pretty tight in this deck. I've gone for Execution's Capsule. It's a 1 black artifact. I can pay a black and a colourless to sacrifice it and destroy a non-black creature. That's kind of it. It's basically a Doomblade but in artifact form. So that's going to be my removal. So if I'm not killing a creature with it, I can always return it to my hand, and it only costs 1 to put back down again. I've got a copy of Sentinel Totem. This is just another 1-drop where I can put it back to my hand and then play it again. It's going to be my Graveyard Hate in the deck. I've got another copy in the sideboard, but when it enters the battlefield I get to scry 1. So as you can tell, if I return it to my hand, I can play it again, keep scrying, etc. That's what makes it better than like Tormod's Crypt or Relic of Progenitus or anything like that. It's because it hasn't entered a battlefield trigger as well. That's kind of what I want it there for. It's a pretty good card, and yeah, it will do a better job than the other Graveyard Hate I can think of that are artifacts. I've got 1 Navigator's Compass. Just the same. It's going to kind of hopefully keep us in the game. When it enters the battlefield, we gain 3 life. That's all it's really there for. You can also tap it, and until end of turn, target land you control becomes the basic land type of your choice in addition to its other types. So it is kind of mana fixing as well, which is quite good because we have got quite a lot of colourless lands in this deck. But they're the 1-drops. you know, removal and just, you know, as I explained, just enter the battlefield triggers. That's all we need. So we do have a lot of artifacts, so it would make sense to play 4 copies of Ethereum Sculptor. The artifact, basically it just makes artifact spells cost 1 less to cast. It's very important in this deck because it means we can kind of go off if we have 2 on the battlefield at once. This will be pretty much any removal fodder from our opponents, so I don't really expect these guys to live too long, but it's just a great creature, and it allows us to do what we want to do. So we want to play a lot of artifacts with enter the battlefield triggers, which not only kind of draw us cards, but we also want to have stuff to sacrifice the Smothering Abomination. So I've gone with a sort of artifact menu, as it were, of it's kind of 50-50 split of stuff that will give us creatures that are artifacts and stuff that draws us cards. So I've got 1 copy of Cogworker's Puzzle Knot. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colourless servo artifact creature token. It's not that important about the bit below, which is 1 white and 1 sacrifice Cogworker's Puzzle Knot, create a 1/1 colourless servo artifact creature token. We actually will be able to do that, but in a roundabout way, but not with an actual mana base. We're just there because it gives us 2 artifacts, one of which is a creature. I've got 3 copies of Ichor Wellspring. When it enters battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. That's pretty good. We just really need it for the draw card. We're not really going to be sacrificing it. We can sacrifice it, but most games it will just sit on the battlefield. I've got 4 copies of Prophetic Prism. It was kind of I was kind of torn about Ichor Wellspring or Prophetic Prism, but in the end I went for 4 copies of Prophetic Prism purely because it has mana fixing. When it enters battlefield, draw a card, and I pay 1, add 1 mana of any colour. So because I've got a lot of colourless land, this is exactly what we want to do. And it's kind of like Cogworker's Puzzle Knots. It's 4 copies of Servo Schematic. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 colourless servo artifact token. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've got 4 copies of this rather than Cogworker's Puzzle Knots. There's no particular reason. It's just when choosing, I decided on 4 copies of this. So as you can tell, like if I'm returning these to my hand and replaying them, I'm going to have a continuous supply of just 1/1 servo artifact tokens, or a continuous supply of card draw, which is great. That's assuming Esperzoa lives. So we are playing a lot of artifacts. What else can we do? Because obviously a 4/3 Esperzoa and drawing cards and getting odd 1/1s won't really win us the game. I mean, it might do. A lot of decks don't really run many ways to get rid of flying creatures. But another sort of finisher of the deck is Master Thopterist. So whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colourless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That's exactly what we want in this deck. We're always going to be playing artifacts each turn, so each turn we're getting Thopter after Thopter after Thopter. And in a pinch we can pay 2, a blue and a colourless, to sacrifice 2 artifacts and draw a card. That's actually why I kind of... that's pretty much why I put 4 copies of Servo Schematic in, rather than 4 copies of Cogworkers, because I can actually sacrifice it, and I can actually still get the servos. It's also why Ichor Wellspring is pretty important, because that essentially is, if I, let's say, I don't know, sacrifice an Ichor Wellspring and a Servo Schematic, that's a 1/1 creature, I draw and then draw 2 cards. Not bad, not too shabby I think. Plus we get so many Thopters out of this guy. There's only 3 copies purely because he's legendary, but that's it. If all things go wrong, I have got 4 copies of Weaponcraft Enthusiast. It's just got Fabricate 2, so I'll pretty much never play this with put 2 1/1 counters on him. I'm never going to do that. I'm always going to be going for the 2 1/1 colourless servo artifact creature tokens. It's just good in the pinch if we're not drawing right. It's good just to have something that we can, 1, sacrifice the Smothering Abomination, just the Weaponcraft Enthusiast itself, and I've also got servos that in a pinch I can return to my hand with Esperzoa. Just a good card, sort of a binding piece of the deck, really. Cool. I've got 1 copy of Thopter Spy Network, just because I've kind of wanted to put it in. We're always going to have artifacts, and it's a great enchantment because at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. When one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So we're going to be getting in damage with an artifact of some sort throughout this game, so it's just a great way to just draw cards as well. So card draw is definitely the main theme of this deck. We're hoping to draw into loads of cards and just swarm our opponents with just loads of Thopters, loads of Servos, and the odd big 4/3 flyers. As I said before, 4 copies of Smothering Abomination. It's a cool card, and I've got 1 copy of Trading Post. This card here really is just, I don't need more than 1, but this card is just a catch-all for everything. If I need some life, if I'm playing against Burn, I can discard a card, gain 4 life. If I need a chump blocker, I can pay a life, create a rubbishy 0/1 white goat creature token to chump block. I can sacrifice a creature. I should have plenty of creatures to sacrifice. I can return an artifact card from my graveyard to my hand, which is good. And on top of that, I can also pay 1, sacrifice an artifact, and draw a card. So this is just, in this deck, this card is perfect. I only want 1, but if this sits on a battlefield, it's just going to really make our opponent's life just a bit difficult. I think if we're on the back foot, Trading Post can kind of keep us in the game, I think. Probably way longer than we should be in it. I'll go to the lands. We do have a lot of colourless lands. I've got 1 copy of Academy Runes. Obviously it's a colourless legendary land, but I can pay 2 to put a target card, well, artifact card from my graveyard on top of my library. So if they start destroying all my artifacts, I'm just left with like 1 copy of Esperzoa. It's nice to have something where I can get a Prophetic Prism back, or an Ichor Wellspring back, or a Servo Schematic back. Just something that I can start returning to my hand again. So it's good to have just that in the main deck. I've got 3 copies of Creeping Tar Pit. When it enters battlefield tapped, unfortunately, but it's just a creature land, 3/2 blue and black elemental creature, which can't be blocked. So it's just kind of like our 3rd choice of finisher, really. It's probably going to be quite good against control. I've got 4 copies of Darkslick Shores. I do apologise about the lands. You can do a far more budget version of the lands, but I just happen to own these lands, so they're going in, because I really don't want, especially in a deck with 22 lands, having tap lands could be a bit of an issue. But yeah, Darkslick Shores enters battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. Perfect land for this deck. I've got 4 copies of a Darksteel Citadel. Annoyingly, I don't have the artwork for this, and I don't know why. It's just a colourless land that's indestructible, but it is an artifact land. So in a pinch, and I really have nothing else to do, I can just return a Darksteel Citadel to my hand with Esperzoa. And I've got a little card in sideboard, which will definitely help out as well. I've got 1 copy of Foundry of the Consoles. It's just another colourless land, but I can pay 5, sacrifice it, and create 2 1/1 colourless Thopter artifact tokens with flying. This is like the very, very, very last step of if I'm losing a game, that I might have to sacrifice this and just get 2 Thopters. But it's like the Darksteel Citadel. It just gives me late game artifacts if they're getting rid of everything. So, hopefully be alright. I've got 2 copies of Ghost Quarters. Maybe it could be more, but I've got so many colourless lands, I thought I can only really squeeze in 2. This is just for, if they've got creature lands, or against Tron. It's just good. Everyone knows how good Ghost Quarter is. I've got 1 copy of Inventor's Fair. I've got so many artifacts, it makes sense that I have at least 1 copy. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, you gain a life. That's always going to be the case, I think. It's just a colourless land, and I may sacrifice it for 4 and search my library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into my hand, and shuffle my library. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more artifacts. Yep, fair enough. Yet another colourless. This is why, because I've got so many colourless lands, this is why Prophetic Prism is so important in this deck, and even the token copy of Navigator's Compass. So I've just got some basics, 2 islands, looking lovely. I've got 1 basic swamp, just in case I get pathed and all that stuff. And I've got 1 Pluto Delta. You may laugh, why have I only got 1? It's because I played an Esper deck, and actually this is why I've got some of my Shocklands and all that stuff. It's because I played an Esper deck, which Goryo's Vengeance deck, and with what's it called? Is it Obsidian Ghost Council? Basically a deck based around that. So I needed a lot of some fetch lands for Esper, and so I just happen to own 1 blue to Delta. There's no reason not to put it in this deck if I own it. As I said before, you can make this deck far more budget friendly by just changing the lands, but I just have them, so why not have a bit more consistency. And then on top of that, just 2 Watery Graves. For the same reason I own the Polluter Delta, I just have 2 copies of Watery Graves, so why not put them in? Enters battlefield, I may pay 2 life, and yeah, shock myself to come in untapped. That's it. So that's the deck. I'm so intrigued to see how this goes. I say this for every deck, but there's a reason Esperzoa is such a bad card, so I'll see how it goes. I'm not 100%, but we'll have a look. Let's go to the sideboard. I've got a few cool things in the sideboard. So I've got 3 copies of Insult Artifacts. So this is more maybe against like control and stuff like that. It's more of a if they've got a lot of creatures which got trample or anything. If I just need 5/5 creatures, I've got so many artifacts. I can just chuck 3 copies of this into the main deck and just make any of my artifacts a 5/5. That's actually another reason I wanted Darksteel Citadel. So essentially on turn 2, I could make a 5/5 indestructible creature. So that's kind of what that's there for. And some sort of yeah, I think most people know this trick. Just catch our opponent off guard. Against control, 2 copies of Negate, because control is going to wreck this deck, I think. But Negate, we all know Negate. If you play blue, play Negate in your sideboard. It's just a very good card. We don't want those non-creature spells resolving. I've got 1 copy of Mechanized Production. It's almost like a alternate win condition. If they're just blowing me out, it's good to have a Mechanized Production which I can maybe put on a Prophetic Prism and just draw cards each turn. It's just an extra card draw engine, and if I get up to 8, that's even better, I'll win. I just wanted to have 1 copy of this in. It's a very surprising card, and a lot of decks just won't really expect it coming. Well, a lot of people, not decks. Decks don't make decisions. I've got 1 more copy of Sentinel Totem. If I need Graveyard Hate, just 1 more copy would be great. And it's good for the reasons I said earlier. Because I'm playing Dimir, I have nothing against artifacts for enchantments. So 3 copies of Annul is good. Counter-target artifact or enchantment spell. That's all we need to know. I'm playing Dimir, as I said, and there's just nothing I can do against those sort of cards. I've got another copy of Navigator's Compass. If I come up against Burn, it's the same reason I have 1 copy of Sentinel Totem. I can just swap, one or the other out. If I go against Burn, this is just going to be a lifesaver. Against Tron now, I've got 2 copies of Damping Sphere. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces colourless instead of any other type and amount. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. So there you go. It might not actually be too good with us, but I think it could affect Tron a lot more than us, so go team. And then more stuff against control. Good old defense grid, 2 copies of it. Each spell costs 3 more to cast, except during its controller's turn. So if we get this down on turn 2 and it resolves, their counters are going to be offline for a long time. Until, turn 5, 6. That's assuming they're hitting all their land drops. So yeah, that is the deck. We'll leave a description down below if you want to see, if you want to get the CD article of it. There should be a link. But that is the deck, and it's good to be back. And I hope you guys appreciate my sacrifice. This deck may be good, may be bad. I think it's going to have some really good matchups and some really bad matchups. But isn't that pretty much how Magic works? But yeah, I'll see you guys for the games. And yeah, if you like the deck, please like, please subscribe. Please comment. I'm certain there's probably loads of ways I can improve it. But this is a very budget-friendly deck. Other than some of the lands, I mean, I think the whole thing is going to be pretty dirt cheap. I mean, even Sire Master Thopterists, even our legendary creatures, I think I got 4 copies for like under a tick. You can't go wrong with that, can you? Sweet. Alright, I'll see you guys for the games. Bye.